Common denominators. We're going to start with an example determining a common denominator. So let's look and see what a common denominator actually is. It is a common multiple of the denominators of a set of fractions. So that's a lot of words, but if you've got a couple of different fractions and you want to find a common denominator, you look at the denominators of the fractions you have, and then you're going to figure out a common multiple for those denominators. So in this case, we've got 1/2 and 1/4. If you listed the multiples of 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., that's the multiples of 2, and the multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, etc. 4 is in both lists. Actually, so is 8 for that matter. So these are common multiples. We chose 4, it's the smallest one, it's the easiest one to work with, but 4 is a common multiple of these denominators. So that can be what we work with to find equivalent fractions with that denominator. So find a common denominator for 2/3 and 1/2. We've got a couple of approaches that we can use to do this. The first method is using paper folding, or for simplicity's sake, we can just draw a diagram of the paper folding. So the denominator of 2/3 is the number 3. The denominator of 1/2 is 2. So we can take a rectangle, or if you're doing paper folding, it would be a piece of paper, and you fold it so that you've got 3 equal parts. So we would fold it, and we've got 3 sections that are as close to equal as we can while we're folding. Now, that's changing it lengthwise. We're also going to fold or draw on this piece of paper or the diagram by dividing it by 2, which is our other denominator, in the other direction. So this one we went horizontal. Now we're going to divide it vertically as well, but we can cut it in half that way. So then you've got this, and you've got a total of 6 pieces in there. So the common denominator that you would be working with then, with these 2 fractions, 2/3 and 1/2, would be 6. Now the real shortcut for this is to recognize, well, there's 2 pieces here and there's 3 pieces here. 2 times 3 will give you the number of pieces inside your rectangle, which is 6. So you don't actually have to draw it. You could just multiply your denominators together, and that will give you the same result. But this is a visual technique to be able to see it. The other method to calculating your common denominator is to look at the lists of multiples for your 2 denominators and pick a multiple. So in this case, multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, etc. Multiples of 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. The number 6 is common in both, so we can use that as our common denominator. Now, if you continue these lists on, yes, there will be other common multiples, like 12, 18, 24, 30. Those are all going to be common multiples for 3 and 2, but the lowest common multiple is 6, and that's going to be the easiest one to work with, as I'm going to show you here right away. So we're going to write equivalent fractions for 1/2 and 2/3, and I'm going to actually draw this separately just so you can see your process. Start with the fraction you're beginning with, and you're having an equivalent fraction, so it's equal to this. And we know that our common denominator needs to be a 6. So we start with that. 1/2 equals something over 6. So now, to figure out what this top number is going to be, we have to decide, okay, if we're going from 2 to 6, how do we do that? We're multiplying something by 2 to get 6. Well, we know 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that also means that 2 times 3 equals 6. So we're multiplying by 3. If we multiply the bottom by 3, to keep it equal, we have to multiply the top by 3 as well. So 1 times 3 gives us 3. So 3/6 is an equivalent fraction to 1/2. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. That's the process here to keep it equal. So 2 times 3 is 6, so 1 times 3 is 3. Now, follow the exact same process for other fraction. We're starting with 2/3. it's equal to something over 6. That's what we're doing here. So what number times 3 gives us 6? Well, it's 2. 2 times 3 gives us 6. So multiply the top by 2 as well. 2 times 2 is 4. So 4/6 is an equivalent fraction of 2/3. So now, and this is what 7.2 is going to cover, but we have taken these original two fractions, and if we wanted to add or subtract them, we've now converted them to equivalent fractions with a common denominator. So now we can use 3/6 and 4/6, and we can add or subtract however we need to. But we couldn't do that before when they had different denominators. So that's what we're doing. Now if we had picked another number in this list, like 18 instead of 6, then we'd be trying to figure out, okay, 2 times 9 is 18, so then 1 times 9, so it becomes 9 over 18. Those numbers are much bigger to work with. Probably a greater chance of making mistakes, especially if you get into really big fractions. That would be the case. So if we went with 18, then it would be 3 times 6 gives you 18, so then 2 times 6 is 12, so then we'd have 12/18. Like I said, bigger numbers, not quite as pretty to work with. All right, next up is your show you know. Give it a go.